The hail came in at 3:47 local, which is to say it came in during the stretch of the watch where nothing comes in. Comms officer Adela Bren flagged it before I had finished my coffee. Captain Cavell, Priority 3 on Corridor 14 grid, emergency reprovisioning request. I set the mug down. Source: Pelani civilian convoy, 7 vessels. Lead ship registered as Gathering Shade. The hail is addressed to the Pelani Regional Supply Coordination Office, Sector Bureau Code Keth 12. That stopped me. Keth 12 is ours. Has been for 19 years, sir. Boundary consolidation. The Pelani Bureau relocated to Keth 20, and the old code's frequency allocation was absorbed into our Corridor 14 grid under the Joint Emergency Logistics Charter, Section 8. And nobody told the convoy. The convoy's comms firmware is running a pre-consolidation load. They have been in transit 11 months, no service dock in that time. The decommission happened on the Pelani side. Earth had no authority to update foreign firmware. We could only sit on the frequency and respond when something came in flagged. Something had come in flagged. I pulled up the convoy's telemetry on the nav plot. 7 signatures in a loose column near the Orvith 12 relay point, all running reduced power output. Conservation mode. The lead vessel's atmospheric indicators were in the amber band, which means you are counting days, not weeks. One of the trailing vessels was showing early amber on its nutritional reserve index, which means somebody aboard that ship had already started cutting portions. Range: 14 hours standard, 9 if we push the drive. I checked the hold manifest. We had loaded at Depot Carshaw 3 6 days ago. Full general format stores, atmospheric scrubber compound, nutritional concentrate, water purification catalyst, medical dry goods. The charter requires general compatibility loading for any vessel on Corridor 14 monitoring duty. General compatibility means it works for any physiology without species-specific modification. Not because we had known a Pelani convoy would need it. Because we did not know who would. Push the drive, I said. We arrived in 9 hours and 11 minutes. The convoy was strung out along the transit corridor, 7 vessels in a ragged column with the gaps between them wider than formation protocol allowed. The lead ship, Gathering Shade, was a converted bulk transport, wide-hulled, blunt-nosed, the kind of vessel that started its life hauling dry goods between settled worlds and ended up carrying families when the dry goods stopped mattering. Her running lights were dimmed to conservation levels. 2 of the smaller vessels behind her had shut down exterior lighting entirely. A third was venting trace atmosphere from a cracked seal along her port quarter, a slow leak nobody had the spare compound to patch. I brought Thornwall's hold alongside the lead vessel at matching velocity and opened a standard approach channel. Gathering Shade, this is Terran cargo freighter Thornwall's hold, responding to your emergency reprovisioning request filed to Sector Bureau Code Keth 12. We are carrying atmospheric scrubber compound, nutritional concentrate, water purification catalyst, and medical dry goods in general compatibility format. Requesting docking clearance for transfer. The channel was quiet for 8 seconds. Then a voice came through, measured, unhurried, the register of someone who has been managing a slow crisis long enough that the crisis has become the routine. Thornwall's hold, this is Convoy Superintendent Tess Orvari Seneth. We filed our reprovisioning request to the Pelani Regional Supply Coordination Office. We did not file to a Terran vessel. Understood, Superintendent. Your hail was addressed to Sector Bureau Code Keth 12. Keth 12 was decommissioned from the Pelani Registry 19 years ago during a boundary consolidation. The frequency was absorbed into Earth's Corridor 14 monitoring grid under the Joint Emergency Logistics Charter, Section 8. Your comms firmware appears to be carrying a pre-consolidation routing table. Another silence, longer this time. You are telling me our supply request went to Earth? Yes, ma'am. We have been filing to this code for 11 months. Only this filing carried emergency priority. The routine filings would have been logged on our grid without dispatch. Logged. Earth's grid records all traffic on active monitoring codes. Standard charter procedure. I heard her speaking to someone off-channel. I did not understand the language, but I understood the tone. She was confirming what I had told her. Someone on her bridge was pulling up the sector code registry. Someone else was checking the firmware version on their comms array. She came back on the channel. Her voice was the same measured register, but there was something underneath it now that had not been there before. Thornwall's hold. I am granting docking clearance. Bay 2, starboard side. I went aboard to sign the transfer manifest in person. The charter requires a face-to-face signature for emergency provisioning above a certain tonnage, and we were above it. Formality, but the charter runs on formalities, and the formalities are the structure that holds when nothing else does. Superintendent Seneth met me in the cargo receiving bay. She was taller than I had expected, long-limbed, slate-gray skin with a faint blue grain to it, the kind of bone structure that suggested her species had been shaped for patience over distance. Her coat was civilian administrative, close-fitted, sector insignia on the collar, the cuffs worn smooth from 11 months of corridor transit without a port call. She held the manifest tablet at arm's length, the way someone holds a document they are still deciding whether to trust. Captain Cavell. Superintendent. Behind her, my crew was running scrubber compound through the transfer lock. One of her officers, young, narrow-shouldered, wearing a duty coat that had been patched at least twice, stood beside the lock watching the containers come through. He was not counting them on a tablet. He was counting them on his fingers. Seneth scrolled through the manifest. Atmospheric scrubber compound, 90-day supply for all 7 vessels. Nutritional concentrate, 60 days. Water purification catalyst. Medical dry goods, general format, compatible without modification. Everything itemized. Everything loaded into my hold 6 days before I had known her convoy existed. This is a full provisioning load, she said. Standard general format emergency stores, superintendent. We loaded at Depot Carshaw 3 on our last port call. You carry this as a matter of course. The charter requires it for any vessel on monitoring duty. It is not calibrated to your convoy. It is calibrated to whoever needs it. She set the tablet down on the cargo rail beside her. She did not look at me. She watched the transfer lock where the scrubber compound was still moving through. Captain Cavell, how long has Keth-12 been on Earth's monitoring list? 19 years, superintendent, since the consolidation. And in those 19 years, has any other Pelani vessel filed to Keth-12? I had already checked. Bren had pulled the charter database before we docked. I turned the screen towards Seneth. 4 entries. 4 prior incidents across 19 years. 4 Pelani vessels whose comms firmware still carried the old routing table. A cargo tender whose nav system had not been serviced since before the consolidation. A survey scout running a hand-loaded sector index from an outdated manual. A medical transport using a backup array with factory presets. A small freighter whose captain had copied the routing codes from her predecessor's log without verifying the revision date. 4 hails addressed to a bureau that had not existed at that code for nearly 2 decades. 4 quiet responses from whichever Terran vessel happened to be nearest on the grid. All reprovisioning or navigation assistance requests. All resolved. All filed. All closed. Seneth read through them without speaking. The young officer by the transfer lock had stopped counting containers. He was watching his superintendent. 5 now, she said. 5 in 19 years, and none of us knew the code had changed. No, ma'am. The decommission was filed on the Pelani side. Earth has no authority to update foreign firmware. We can only monitor the frequency and respond when a filing comes through. And you respond. It is on the list. She picked up the manifest tablet. She read the cargo summary one more time: the scrubber compound, the concentrate, the catalyst, the medical dry goods, all of it formatted for any species, loaded by routine, dispatched by charter. She signed it and handed it back. She did not say thank you. What she said was quieter than that. Captain Cavell, we filed this request to our own people. We addressed it to our own bureau, using our own routing code in our own language. And the ship that answered was carrying what we needed in a format we could use, loaded before it knew we were here. That is the charter, Superintendent. General format loading is not built for you. It is built for anyone. For anyone, she said. She looked at the transfer lock where the last container was clearing the seal. Then perhaps the list should stay as it is. I told her it would. We cast off 4 hours later, after the final medical dry goods had been distributed to the convoy's rear vessels. Zenith's logistics officer transmitted a formal receipt on the Pelani Administrative Channel, Keth 20, the correct bureau code. It was the first filing from that convoy to reach its own people in 11 months. Bren filed the incident report on our side. Standard charter format. Emergency reprovisioning. Sector Bureau Code Keth 12, 7-vessel Pelani civilian convoy. General format stores transferred. No complications. No casualties. No combat. In the remarks field, she wrote, Convoy comms firmware carried pre-consolidation routing table. Bureau Code Keth 12 remains on Corridor 14 active monitoring list under Joint Emergency Logistics Charter, Section 8. Recommend no change to monitoring status. I read it over. I added one line at the bottom of the report. 5 incidents in 19 years on a decommissioned Bureau Code, all resolved. The 6th will come when it comes. Bren looked at me over the rim of her console. Leave it on the list, I said. She left it on the list.